increased. And so it seems futile sometimes. It seems like no matter what we do, what we try to implement, those rates keep increasing. Oklahoma's rate increased from average from 38% to 58 cents, which is pretty high percentage of increase. And more than half of those who died by suicide did not have a mental health condition. We've kind of fallen into that trap, that A trap. So people like to think, well, people who die by suicide, they were all mentally ill. That's not true. Mental illness may play a part. Or it's just, oh, they were all druggies. Again, that's not true. Addiction may play a part. Alcohol may play a part. But there's a lot of other things that are involved in suicide. So we can't, again, we can't just say the protective factor. It's going to save you either. Well, they don't do drugs, so their life will be good. They wouldn't think of ever killing themselves. Persons who die by suicide have multiple circumstances, and it's possible that the mental health condition is present, but it just wasn't diagnosed, which I think is a pretty important point, because there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of issues. Just because they don't have a diagnosis of mental disorder does not mean that things are okay. A lot of people don't seek help. A lot of people don't get good help. A lot of people don't have access to help. There's still a stigma involved in treatment for substance use and for mental health treatment. So for all those reasons, people don't seek help. Another thing to remember too, is just because you have an insurance card doesn't mean you have access to services. Differences exist among those with or without a mental health condition. People without a known mental health condition are more likely to be male and more likely to choose a firearm. Those that have a known condition, and those that die by suicide, the vast majority were male versus female. You'll see that running through this presentation, the suicide rates for men to women are 3 to 1, consistently, every state. And for people that did not have a known condition, 84% were male and 16% were female. And again, what do we know about people who do seek help? Well, for the most part, women seek help more than men do. And perhaps that is part of the influence of why the men's suicide rates are so high, because they don't seek help. At the same time, what I've got to say is, unfortunately, women are kind of picking up the slack here, because women's suicide rates are increasing. And women are now choosing more lethal means and using firearms more than they used to. Now here's some stats to start out with. This is from 2015. I know you're saying 2015, but this is 2018. You guys know about stats, and they can be very difficult sometimes. In terms of whatever stats I give you on suicide, it is safe to assume that they're higher. And that doesn't mean that people who are collecting the stats aren't doing a good job. It just depends on who's collecting the stats, for what purpose, what their age range is, and looking at what are the circumstances, what are their guidelines. For instance, a lot of times things are ruled an accident, which probably could be a suicide. So many times the data is not collected, and there are a number of other kind of examples I could give you for just like older adults. Maybe an older adult dies, and the doctor comes in and says they died of a heart attack because the family is pressuring them. They don't want anything to suicide. Well, yeah, they died by heart attack because they drank 4 bottles of vodka and ingested 5 vials of medication. So again, the data sometimes is misleading, but the data is high. You can assume that the data is actually higher than whatever stats I'm showing you. But if you just look at the numbers for the nation, for total per day, there's 121 people a day in this country to suicide, at a rate of almost 14%. And I've got it broken down there for age ranges. And you have this material, you can look at it and think about it and try to digest it and all. But I think the important thing there is to look at some of those age ranges. Older adults are pretty high risk. And then also on the left-hand or the right-hand side on your side, the fatal outcomes. One person about every 12 minutes dies of suicide in this country. And one older adult dies by suicide about every hour. Now, 2016, this is a year up. This is from the American Association of Suicidology. Rates and rankings for both sexes for the nation, our rate was almost 14%, whereas in Oklahoma, it was 21%. And that's both sexes. For older adults, the rate for the nation was almost 17%, for Oklahoma again, 21%. For our young people in the nation, the rate was 13%. In Oklahoma, 22% of our young people died by suicide. That's per 100,000. And here's some age-adjusted suicide death rates in Oklahoma, ages 10 and above, from 2000 to 2016. As again, you can see, it just consistently has gone up over the years from 2000 to 2016. And there's quite a discrepancy there between Oklahoma and the nation as a whole. And does this mean that Oklahoma is not doing anything to prevent suicide? Well, we are. We're doing a lot to prevent suicide. But in order to do programs, do evidence-based programs to reach more people, to provide more treatment, to allow more access to people, you have to have funding. And what's the one thing we're known for here in Oklahoma when it comes to people's well-being is that we just don't seem to have the funding. So that contributes to the fact of why Oklahoma's rates are so high. It is the most common type of violent death here in Oklahoma. And from 2012 to 2016, we had over 3,600 people die by suicide. When I started doing the suicide presentations back 2 years ago or so, there were about 5,000 people that died every year, or 500 people died every year. And now it's over 700 in Oklahoma. So just in 10 years' time, it's increased quite a bit. Over 200 people die by year in Oklahoma. And our average age in 2016, it was 45 and a half years old, or 45 and a half is our average, and our range was from 11 to 98. The year before, we had a suicide as young as 10. And of those that died by suicide in Oklahoma, 78% were male and 22% were female. Again, about 2-to-1 ratio. Our state facts, more Oklahomans die of suicide than in motor vehicle crashes. But you see a lot about motor vehicle crashes, but we don't hear much about suicide. Not that I want suicides published in our local daily disappointment newspaper, but I think the conversation needs to come up. We talk about car safety and not drinking while driving, and now not smoking pot while driving, and all these other issues are going to come up now. But we still aren't having that national conversation or local conversation about suicide and all the people that are at risks. We have virus protection. Good to know. Okay, Oklahoma suicide cases homicides 3 to 1. And I said that and firearms are the most common weapon involved. I brought my soapbox, but I won't get on it because I'll probably fall off and hurt myself. But if we could do some common sense means control. For instance, the gun situation. If you're going to have the guns, can we at least have them locked up? If you're going to have the guns, can we have them unloaded? If you have the guns, can we have safety locks on so the kids don't blow each other's heads off? Just some common sense things we can do. Now, I'm all for we not having guns, but that's not going anywhere. I know that. But there are things we can do. Medication, especially if we're talking about older adults. Older adults may be taking 14 to 15 meds. And some of those are going to be heavy-duty meds. Okay, if you're going to be having those meds, if you're going to be having the opioids, have a lockbox. Don't have them spread out on the kitchen counter. Don't have easy access to the medicine cabinet, so when your little grandson Johnny comes over, he swipes a few. Or your little grandson Johnny may be an angel, but his friend Billy is a devil incarnate. Or you have your sons or your daughters need a few extra bucks, so what do? They come and raid the opioid stash. So if we're going to have these medications around, and we do, let's have some common sense with them. We just have them locked up. Let's not have them available to anyone that walks into the house. Again, we can impact the suicide rate just by those 2 little things: firearms safety and medication safety. Now here you get an idea of suicide death rates by county of injury for Oklahomans aged 10 and above for a period of time. You can see the top 5 counties are really dark. And now Oklahoma County is that second from the top. So we're up there, but we're not as high as some of them, but then again, we're not as low as others. The top 10 leading causes of death by age in Oklahoma, 2012 to 2016. Now, what I don't like about this chart, I think it's very revealing, because when you look at it, the homicide is red and the suicide is green. So you can see the variance there. But what I don't like it is when it goes to like older adults, which is my territory, working with older adults. because of the fact that so many other things kill older adults. You know, heart disease, cancer, the body's wearing out, the debility, all that's involved there, that suicide doesn't even, it rarely shows up in older adults. So while this is a good graph, it's also misleading as to how important it is in some age groups. Gender-specific suicide and homicide rates. As you can see, suicide is that pretty purple, and our homicide is the faded green. But look at the difference from the males and the female. And yet we make a lot of efforts to curb our homicide rate, and it seems like we do very little to curb our suicide rates. And here's for 15 to 44, that's kind of a little bit older age range. Again, look at the causes for that. The purple is suicide, the white heart disease, that violet color is cancer, and then so which one's going to miss the homicide rate. So you can see the variations again. We know we're a very unhealthy state. You know, again, thank God for Mississippi, but we're a very unhealthy state, and a lot of our people die for these very causes. But again, look at how suicide kills them too. We have a lot of focus on medical advances, which is a good thing. We also need to focus on that suicide prevention because it's killing more people. And here's age and gender-specific rates. I just wanted to show you this so you can get an idea of the age range. And again, look at that 85 plus. The green, male, and the purple, female. Those are age and gender-specific rates of suicide. Now, until just recently, about the past 3 or 4 years, older adults themselves had the highest suicide rate of anybody, any age group. That's changed in, like I said, the past 3 or 4 years, and there's nothing good news about the change. But now the middle age group has surpassed the older adult population for the highest rate of suicide. And we believe that though that is because of the fact there was economic turmoil, and still is economic turmoil, but a lot of that has to do with our veterans. And that age group fits the age group of many of the veterans who are taken their life. The latest stats I have is that we have 20 veterans a day in this country that die by suicide. So that has increased that middle age. So again, like I said, it's no good news. It's not like we're doing better with older adults. It's just that things are worse for that middle age group. And here are the rates of death for Oklahoma's age 10 and older. Males are the green, Oklahoma is the purple, and females are that violet color. Again, males are the highest. Oklahoma's not doing that well, and females are starting to up those percentages. Gender, race, and ethnicity. A lot of times people like to pinpoint and think, well, it's just certain populations. First, they like to think that maybe it's that the youth that are sniffing gasoline, doing the bath salts. Of course, they're the ones who die by suicide. I mean, they're the ones who have risky behaviors and don't know what they're doing, and they're the ones who probably have the highest suicide rates. When in fact, that's not the case at all. We like to think that maybe certain ethnic populations, well, they're all the ones that you do all the drugs and stuff, so of course they're the highest rate. Again, this graph doesn't support that kind of thinking. So the vast majority of the time are white folks, male white folks have the highest rate. I shouldn't say that. American Indians just inched them out, just slightly. We know that the American Indian population has a very high rate of suicide. Their youth have a very high rate of suicide. And age group and gender rates for suicide, again, males and females, look at the difference. And it's per 100,000, and with 65 plus, it's a pretty high rate. Male homicide and suicide rates by race. And again, I'm showing you the stat just to try to clear the air and some of the misconceptions we have about suicide and crime and those kind of rates and all of what the actual data shows us. This is from the Oklahoma Violent Death Reporting System. Now, leading suicide methods and means from 2012 to 2016, firearms, 75% were handguns, those firearms. There were some rifles and some shotguns, but the handguns were the main choice for people, the main lethal means choice for people. And it was hanging and strangulation came in second, followed by poisoning. And then, of course, there's other kind of methods, sharp blunt instruments, motor vehicles, transportation, drowning, fire, falls, and jumps. And to go back to the statistic deal, you know, we're in Oklahoma here, we're pretty flat. We mean, there are times you can stand, you can see like 30 miles in the distance, and there's nothing there except one little hill. But then you'll read in the paper, or you'll hear on the radio or on TV, a situation where there was an accidental vehicle crash. And then you find out where it was at, and it was in that 30 miles of nothing. And in that 30 miles of nothing, there was one tree. And so on a bright sunny day, with no other traffic, one car managed to veer off the road and hit the tree. Now that's kind of an extreme example, but again, that's going to be counted as an auto accident. It's not going to be counted as a suicide. It's, in my book, it's highly suspect that kind of coincidence would happen. But again, that's not going to be counted as a suicide unless there's a suicide note in the car. And so our statistics can be a little misleading sometimes. Methods of suicide by gender: firearms for men, 65%. That's the weapon or lethal means of choice. Followed by hanging, strangulation, poisoning. For females, the female graph used to be different. The firearms were not one of the major choices for women. Women would go for the poisoning, the hanging, and strangulation. But now, as I said earlier, the women are picking up the slack and starting to choose more lethal means to die by suicide, which increases the rate, because the more lethal means you use, the less chance you have of surviving that suicide, which is part of the problem for instance, for the older adult population, why that's so high, because those older bodies can't recover. So a 35-year-old may do something to themselves that they can recover from, or an 80-year-old body is not going to recover from that same kind of thing. Now, this is the interpersonal theory of suicide by Joyner and Maynard. These are the prime people studying suicide and suicide prevention, and they make it very simple to understand. What goes on with someone who dies by suicide is you have that red circle, which they call thwarted belongingness. Then you have the blue circle, which is perceived burden. Then you have that capability, that little bit in the middle there. And when those things intertwine, they all come together, and we have a prime opportunity for someone to kill themselves, someone to make a choice and kill themselves. Now break that down and make it unscientific language. It means that when people don't feel like they belong, they don't feel connected to where they live, work, play, the people that are around them, and they just feel isolated, unconnected, they don't belong, and then they feel like they're just a burden, they're just a problem to themselves and to anybody else. And then you have access to means, you have those three things converge together, and you're probably going to have suicide. So those are the things we know for sure that we can use to prevent suicides. It's if we know that someone is not connected, if we're not connected, let's get connected, let's help them get connected. They feel like we're, feel like you're a burden or they're a burden. Let's talk them down from that. People see themselves in their situations differently. So someone may see themselves as a burden when in fact, nobody else does. But you know how that goes. You know how our human mind plays games with itself. You know some of the things we do to ourselves, and when you're down and out, you feel like the whole world is against you. When in fact, none of that is true. That's just your situation. That's what you're feeling. So, feelings are real, but that doesn't mean that that's the reality. So there's just three simple things to keep in mind. So if you know someone is isolated and lonely and it's not connected, or you feel like a burden and you don't have access to deadly means, that's a huge red flag. We need to do something. Circumstances. There have been misconceptions about what causes a person to die by suicide, to make that choice. People like to be comfortable now, thinking it's doing one thing. So of course it's mental illness. So everybody that dies by suicide is mental ill. That's not true. Or substance abuse. That's not true. They like to think now too there's a connection between bullying. Bullying is big and bullying is awful and bullying is real. But they like to still think that, okay, if a young person died by suicide, it's because they were bullied. Well, that bullying may figure into it, but there's no cause and effect there. The bullying probably contributed to it. You can't just say if we stop all bullying, we'll never have more suicide. That's not true either. So the bullying probably was a big part of that situation, but there are other things that are involved too. But we like to have these one-step solutions. This is America. Take a pill and it'll all go away. That's kind of how we think, but suicide's not like that. So what are the circumstances for suicide? It can be mental health, substance abuse, or convictions, people having depressed moods, a diagnosed mental health condition, current treatment, if they've been treated for mental health, substance abuse, they have an alcohol problem or substance abuse problem. Now, does that mean everybody who drinks too much is going to kill themselves? No. But if someone is abusing drugs or alcohol, that puts them at higher risk for making those kind of bad decisions. Or any kind of other addictions, to include things like gambling, even social networking. There's a whole lot of talk about the addiction that a lot of people have in social networks and how the impact that's having. The depression rates are increasing from people spending all the time in other people's lives and trying to compare it to their own. We're having people being isolated and not knowing how to connect with humans anymore because they're connected with that bright, shiny screen. So those are other issues that can contribute. Relationships and life stressors. There can be intimate partner problems, family relationship problems, abuse or neglect, a history of abuse or neglect, if they've been previous victim of violence, if they had fights, if they had arguments. Now the intimate partner piece for younger people, for middle-aged people, that's a more important element than it would be for the very young or the very old. In fact, it can be a prime trigger for that middle-aged population. More circumstances, crime and criminal activity. So a lot of times people who are victims of crime, or they are so, their anxiety level is so high that they just fear that at any moment they're going to get victim of crime. So maybe they stop leaving their house, they start isolating. Again, they're starting to lose their connections that we know are so important to keep us all healthy. Suicide-specific circumstances, if someone has had suicide attempts before, especially if they've had those attempts and we know that they didn't seek help, they didn't get help, or they're currently not getting help. And of course, if they leave a suicide note or have a history of suicidal thoughts or plans, or if they had a crisis in the past 2 weeks or a crisis upcoming, we have to be careful how we define crisis. What is a crisis to you might be my Wednesday, and vice versa. So we really don't know what a crisis, we really can't define a crisis, but it's very individual. You know, for the people I know, they break a nail, it's a crisis. Other people, their house would have it burned down and they're still coping. It's individual. So if what a person perceives as a crisis, that we have to not be judgmental on, and to accept the fact that they feel that they are in a crisis. Life stressors contributing criminal legal problems, civil problems, physical health problems. The majority of the time, the physical health is a big deal again for older adults because they have more physical health problems more severe than for younger people. Job problems, financial problems, school problems, evictions, suicide of a friend or family. Again, how suicide would affect you. If you know anybody, not just your family, very close friend, if you know anybody that died by suicide, then you're a survivor technically, because you've been touched by that suicide. So a suicide of a friend or a family puts people more at risk also. It increases the risk for suicide if a family member dies by suicide. Non-suicide death of a friend or family, they can also be a trigger, an anniversary of a traumatic event, disaster exposure. And here in Oklahoma, we've had some trauma, as have other states, but we know what trauma is. People don't easily recover from trauma unless they have access to treatment and get treatment. Not everybody does. But trauma can also be triggered. So maybe you've lived through that experience, maybe something like the Mora bombing, maybe it didn't directly impact you, but because you live in Oklahoma, you know about it, you've seen all the turmoil, you're still somewhat impacted, and then something else happens. It can trigger with you that Mora bombing feeling and initiate the possibility of developing mental disorders. That's what trauma does to us. And again, we're talking about the brain. Let's remember how powerful our brain is. We can think we can overcome stuff, but still it's the brain that tells us when to breathe, when to walk, when to talk, when we're hungry, when to swallow. It helps with our digestion and our blood flows. That brain is so important that if things are awry in the brain, it has disastrous consequences. So we have to be so diligent about keeping our brains healthy and helping other people who don't have healthy brains get their health back. The leading circumstances associated with suicide, this is just Oklahoma over this 4-year period of time. 44% had one or more diagnosed or treated mental health problems, which is schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder. 34% had intimate partner problems, and 31% had a current depressed mood. 20% had physical health problems, 18 substance abuse, 17 alcohol, 10% recent criminal, 9% job problem, 8% financial problem. So some of those stats are higher than others, but then the fact remains is we've got multiple issues going on here. And again, it's not A plus B. So somebody has a criminal legal problem, it does not mean that that's why they're focused. If they had that criminal legal problem, they had that pending, there are probably a lot of things going on. Maybe because of that, they have lost their job, so now they're going to lose their house, and then maybe their wife is going to divorce them, or their husband's going to divorce them, maybe they're going to lose their kids, maybe they have their vehicle impounded, maybe they're worried about putting food on the table. All this stuff is going on, which may lead someone to make that decision that life is hopeless, helpless, there's no help for me, I'm a burden, I'm unconnected, so I will kill myself. So it's not just that one deal, there's always multiple things, there's multiple layers, there's multiple onion layers going on in people's lives. 21% stated an intent to kill themselves. Some were positive for alcohol, and some were positive for substances other than alcohol. In terms of the statistics too, it can be a little misleading if someone has been doing a lot of drugs or ingesting a lot of alcohol, and then they end up dying. We're talking an accidental death here, and we're talking suicide. It's very hard to tell. We don't have postmortems here for suicide in Oklahoma because we can't wait for it, we can't afford it. So we can't do some of the research we need to do to help prevent suicides. Now the circumstances by life stage, you can see the different colors in there. It probably looks much better, on your computer than it does here on the big screen. But current depressed mood is that purple, the red is intimate partner problem, the green is mental health, the purple is physical health, and the yellow is alcohol. So you can see the different circumstances that are recorded here for different age groups. And then for older adults, the physical health problem is a really big issue. Being in a lot of pain and feeling like there was no hope for you. Now when you get to that 45 to 64-year-old, mental health problems are the next problem. And then we get down there to 25 to 44-year-old, you got a tie between mental health problems and intimate partner problems. And the intimate partner is a big piece for that age range. And then we go on down the line, of course, the physical health problems when we're very young, but the alcohol and substance abuse problem is pretty big for the 10 to 24-year-old. Top circumstances by gender, and again, these are Oklahoma stats. For males, the current mental health problem was the biggest top-ranked circumstance, whereas for women it was current mental health problem for women also. And then the second for men was partner problem, and the women were current depressed mood. It kind of flip-flopped there, with men are current depressed mood and women are intimate partner problem. But it just kind of gives you some of the highlights, if you know, I guess a bad choice of word. But some of the ranking, some of the main circumstances for people who died by Oklahoma for male and female. Risk factors for suicide, there's biopsychosocial and there's environmental. So the biopsychosocial, such as mental health disorders, alcohol or substance use disorders, hopelessness, impulsive aggressive tendencies, history of trauma or abuse, major physical illnesses, previous suicide attempt, and family history of suicide. A history of trauma or abuse is very important because we know we have a very high domestic rate, domestic abuse here in this state. So that means a lot of people, whether they're men or women that are the victims, are at risk. And we know we've had some trauma, even when the tornadoes are traumatic. We have a lot of people who are suffering from trauma and from post-traumatic stress disorder because of things like the tornadoes. So again, we have a high population at risk for suicide because they have trauma. Trauma, if people receive treatment, get the help that they need, they can live very happy, productive, long lives. If they don't, that's where we have our increased risk for suicide. Environmental, job or financial loss, relationship or social loss, easy access to lethal means, local clusters of suicide having contagious influence. Now that may not make any sense. I mean, we're talking about brain activity, and we're talking about circumstances and factors and science and data. data and statistics and all that when we're talking about contagious. But the fact remains is for young people, especially school-age people, suicide is proven to be contagious. So if we have a suicide in school, particularly in elementary, middle school, and high school, but if we have a suicide in school, we've got to get there immediately. And not with the helicopters and the news people asking a kid how he feels. We've got to get there and do some intervention with the rest of the kids, because we know for a fact if there's a suicide in school, there's going to be another. For kids, it's contagious. Now, part of that is that frontal lobe not being developed. Part of it, too, is that a lot of times kids get the wrong message about suicide. So what they feel, what they see, their reality is that this is the way to be famous, to be immortal. A lot of times they don't even quite understand the finality of death. But to give you an example, if you have a situation where maybe that football player I talked about, a football player in high school who's very low lived and suddenly dies by suicide. So they have a big ceremony, at the football games, a lot of remembrance, a lot of things in the yearbook. There are banners over the school. They even make T-shirts. They plant trees for the lost boy. All those things are very heartwarming. They're very genuine. They're very important. But if another kid dies in a car accident, do we plant the tree? Do we make the T-shirts? Do we drape the school? Do we have all these events? Do we have all these remembrances? Most of the time we don't. So what's happening is the kids are getting the wrong message. To be cool, to be great, to be popular, to be remembered, you gotta do something like kill yourself. So that's why it's so important for schools to get in the right way, because it is contagious with kids. We give them the wrong message time and time again. I've personally seen that wrong message. And at first it was heartbreaking. It was a situation where a soccer player died, again, very supposedly wonderful wife kid killed himself. So the soccer team made T-shirts. The parents came to the game. They gave the ball. My son was coach. That's why I know all this. They gave the parents the ball. The kids all wore T-shirts. Next game, the kids all wore T-shirts. The parents came to the game. They the ball. It went on and on and on until the whole thing is no longer about school or soccer. The whole thing was like a funeral, week after week. And I think it really gave the wrong message. First of all, to other people that had lost sons or daughters for whatever reason, not just suicide, but they weren't being remembered. But then the kind of a glorification. It's supposed to be the remembrance of a kid, and instead it ended up kind of being a glorification of the suicide. So we've got to be careful for young people. Suicide is extremely dangerous situation that we need to address immediately. The social risk factors, the lack of support, a sense of isolation. We know that there's a stigma involved in trying to seek treatment for substance use or for mental health issues. And we know that there are barriers to accessing health care, especially mental health and substance use treatment. We don't have enough treatment facilities. And as I said before, it's because you have an insurance card doesn't mean you have access to services. You think you can afford them? Can you afford them? How are you going to get there? What if you go and you don't like your therapist? Do you have options after that? Then we have cultural risk factors, certain cultural and religious beliefs. It's very difficult, for instance, to try to work on suicide prevention in some cultures when some cultures believe that that's an honorable death. That in some instances, this is what you should do. In other cultures, they believe that people who die by suicide are going to be damned to hell. Well, that's a lot of stigma for the remaining family members and other people to try to overcome. But the different cultural beliefs and religious beliefs sometimes impact our response to suicide. People think that if you die by suicide, you're a terrible person, and it's against all religious beliefs and against anything God would ever say. So of course, you're an awful person. You deserve to kill you. Just it goes on and on and on. So we got to keep in check how we think and how we feel about this stuff, and try to get past that. Leave our personal baggage at the door, and just try to focus on the person in trouble and see if we can help. Exposure to and influence of others who have died by suicide, including the media. Examples I gave you earlier about how the kids get the wrong message. Well, I'm sure a lot of older people and kids get the wrong message too, because you think about the death by by suicide, and you're on all the social media pages. There are little segments talking about your life, and everything you've done that was wonderful, and what a shame it is that you died, and you were the best person in the world. It goes on and on and on. So it gives a long message to a lot of different age groups as to what a suicide really means. Now, what are the protective factors? We know what works: effective clinical care. People have a mental health disorder, or if they have a substance use disorder, and they get help and treatment and recovery. Easy access to those interventions. Restricted access to highly lethal means and strong connections to our community. Support through ongoing medical and mental health care relationships. Skills in problem solving, conflict resolution, and nonviolent handling of disputes. And culture and religious beliefs that discourage suicide and support self-preservation. That's really important, but then again, put yourself in the position of having the religious belief that suicide is wrong. It's terrible. And then be the person who's thinking about killing yourself. And what a conflict if you got there. And you haven't even got enough shoulders from good angels and bad angels, and one conflict that must increase that person's anxiety level to have that strong belief in everything self-determining. So it can be very troubling. Religious beliefs can be very helpful, they can also be very harmful. And we talk about the skills in problem solving and conflict resolution. You know it's human nature when you're down and out, when you've got all this, like the world is crashing down, you've got all your papers are due, all your exams are due, your car broke down, your rent is due, your relationship isn't going as well in life, you gained 5 pounds, whatever. All this stuff, you're not thinking clearly. You're overwhelmed. And that's just stuff that you can handle. You really don't think clearly when that's going on. So if you have that turmoil you're talking about, the job loss, maybe divorce, loss of your income, you're not going to be thinking clearly. That's where we can step in. A lot of times you don't, when you're in that kind of state, you don't see the forest from the tree. It's an old saying, but it's true. So a lot of times it takes somebody on the outside to step in and go, oh, did you think about that? Oh, have you tried this? Oh, have you called your friend? Oh, have you called your doctor? To bring somebody back down to a kind of realistic state, we can make some good decisions. So that's one of the things that we can do to help someone. Just veer them down to the very common, the very normal kind of stuff that they probably aren't even thinking about because they are so overwhelmed. Okay, if you're in a situation where you know that someone is talking about suicide, thinking about suicide, you're just very concerned about a person, maybe that's on the route that they're going, the best thing you can do, write the number down, put it in your cell phone, have it available. This is a 24/7 hotline called the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There are trained volunteers that answer at all hours of the day or night. You can call because you're in a situation, you're with somebody, that you're worried about somebody, you're worried about somebody you don't know what to do. This is the best resource that I can offer you. So, as I put the number down, it is a lifesaver, both for someone who's thinking about killing themselves and for those of us who are trying to prevent someone from killing themselves. What can we do? We can engage people, we can talk with people. If you're worried about somebody, let's talk to them. Are you worried about being too sensitive in this day and age? Doesn't seem like there is any sensitivity anymore in this day and age. It used to be, but not anymore. But at the same time, what's the worst that can happen if you're asking a personal question? Did you get an answer? Did you get an answer that things are okay? What's the worst that can happen? If you're thinking about trying to help someone or trying to save a life. Okay, ask, are you thinking of killing yourself? Are you thinking of killing yourself? Listen to what they're saying. Are they talking about being a burden? Are they talking about being the problem? Are they talking about not feeling connected, that nobody cares about, that they don't care about? Ask things like, can we get you some help? Can you help me get you some help? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about calling that? Have you got a close priest, rabbi, whatever? Call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If the person has a plan and a means, call 911. If you're in a situation where someone is talking about killing themselves and they've got the means, they've got the gun, or they've got the knife, or whatever, you're not going to call the Prevention Lifeline, you're going to call 911. But you know that from life. If you're in a dangerous situation, you call 911 immediately. And you know your organization's protocol, you should be contacted, how should the situation be handled. So if you're in an examining room with someone and for whatever reason you feel something is happening, you ask them, and they tell you, yeah, they're thinking about what are you supposed to do? So know what you're supposed to do ahead of time, know what your protocol is. Are you to press a button, are you to call a supervisor, are you to call a crisis person? Know your protocol so that you feel equipped. Because these are not everyday situations that we're talking about. And they're going to be scary. We don't do this on a normal basis. Deal with people who are suicidal. So if you're in that kind of a situation, give yourself a break and be prepared. Have that number available. That's our lifeline. That's our safety net. And then know what you're supposed to do in your situation. Now, there's some resources that are available. And the first one, the ones on your right side of the screen. There is a suicide prevention app that you can have on your phone. It's from SAMHSA. That's the big federal social service, substance abuse and mental health organization in the sky. And it's a free app from them. And it is more clinical, but what it is some guidelines and with some risk factors. And it's just a real easy thing to refer to. Because we're talking about a situation that's not real comfortable for most of us. So it's nice to have those little safety nets. So you can put that on your phone and always refer back to that just to get some update, get some information, get the blood flowing in the brain kind of thing. Then there's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. But now on the other side of the screen, there's something that's just really simple. We talk about screening, how about your early identification and treatment is the best thing we can do for people that have a substance abuse disorder, for people that have a mental health disorder. The sooner we recognize something that's going on, the sooner we give them help, the more chances are they're going to recover quickly. It's an early identification and treatment is paramount. So what are ways that we identify things? By asking some questions. But there are some validated screening tools that are available to us. There's depression screening tools, there's anxiety screening tools. There are suicide screening tools that are quite lengthy. But there's a 2-question screening that's proven to be effective. So the question is, over the last 2 weeks, have you thought that you'd be better off dead, that you wanted to hurt yourself? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then you say, do you feel these thoughts are a problem? You think you might act on it? If the answer is yes, then we have 2 bold yeses, which means we have a high risk here for suicide and we need to take some action. We need to try to get that person some help. So again, it's a safety net for yourself. 2 easy questions. These aren't that personal and hard to be asking, but these are things that you can ask to give yourself some control, give yourself some tools, some things that we can use to talk with people who are in a very bad situation. There again is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And with that, the conclusion is that suicide is a public health crisis. And what are we going to do about it? Well, we can take the next step, which let's take the public health approach. So rather than going door to door, if every one of us left the building and went door to door here in the neighborhood, knocking on doors saying, are you suicidal? How far do you think we're going to get? So what we need to do is not do this individual approach, we need to do the public health approach, which is prepare the entire community. So it's not just this group of 30 people walking out trying to go door to door. If our entire community here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County, the state of Oklahoma is prepared to recognize signs and symptoms and equipped to help people, direct people to get the help that they need, we can address this problem. So that's how we're going to approach the public health approach. We will teach the community how to fish, rather than trying to scrape and find food for every person in town. What we'll do is teach everybody in town how to grow their own food, how to fish for their own food. Provide and develop community supports and resources for suicide. Talk about suicide. Talk about suicide prevention, not treat it like some dirty little secret that only happens to those kind of people. It affects all of us, and it's huge. And in order to address the problem, we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it realistically. Think about how far we've come talking about some of the other taboo issues in our time. We talk about child abuse, we talk about child sexual abuse, we talk about gay rights, gay marriage, transgender, domestic abuse. Now we're talking about immigration, we'll figure. But this is how we're going to make some steps, is the more we talk about these things and be open about them. And it also gives other people permission, so if you're a person who is having some suicidal thoughts, if you're with someone who's kind of a regular Joe, that actually seems interested in talking with you about it, it seems like they might understand some of what you're thinking or feeling, think of what that does. Think they learn to lower their anxiety level. And again, it makes them feel connected. These are folks who are unconnected. For you and me, being somebody that would be kind and listen, that's the road to connectedness. And QPR, what's that? Question, persuade, and refer. It's an evidence-based suicide prevention program. So that is our next step. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we're going to come back in and do a QPR program. And to give you the tools you need so that if you're in that situation, if you recognize someone who's in distress, that you can help them, that you feel competent, and that you have enough tools to be able to address the problem. So with that, I haven't got a larger time, but I'm assuming that
They're pretty good about 10-minute breaks, so let's just take a 10-minute break and come back and just move around. They're programmed to 10-minute breaks.